Hello and good evening. I'm Melisa Idris. Welcome to Consider This. This is the show where we want you to consider and then reconsider what you know of the news of the day. Malaysia is facing a critical shortage of veterinarians. The Department of Veterinary Services recently reveals that the country has just over 2,500 active veterinarians. That's far short of what's needed to meet the growing demand from livestock farms to research labs and a booming pet care industry. So this shortfall is more than just a numbers problem. It's a question of national readiness in terms of public health, food safety, and animal welfare. So what will it take to train, retain, and recognize the veterinary workforce who play such a critical role in our food and health systems? Joining me on the show to discuss this further is Professor Dr. Meng, who's Dean of UPM's Faculty of Veterinary Medicine. Dr. Go, thank you so much for being on the show with me today. From your academic standpoint, can you talk to me a little bit about how serious the current shortage of veterinarians are in Malaysia? Where are the pressure points that are being felt the most here?
Maybe, thank you for giving the intro to the topic. I guess before we even arrive at a shortage, we need to know how do we get here in the first place. You were right in saying that there are about 2,500 practicing vets now. Actually, in actual fact, in terms of number of registered numbers, we have about 3,877 as of March 2025. That is based on data from Malaysian Veterinary Council. And it wasn't an issue before because most of the vets are actually involved in various sector. Because I like to take this opportunity as well to maybe to correct some perception of what the public has about veterinarians. People tend to associate the face of veterinarians with companion animal practice, namely dogs and cats, where else in actual reality, they are playing big roles in food security, producing food animals, and then ensuring safe food. In fact, the very first heart transplant was done in an animal model back in 1997 in UPM using our faculty. And of course, you don't attempt it in human beings first. So those are among the roles that the vets have played. And previously, there wasn't very much a shortage because we are talking about vets that has been actively supporting the food industry. Based on the slides, based on the data that we have, the food animal industry in Malaysia is worth about 34 billion ringgit as of 2021. And then the companion animal itself, comprising of pet services and pet food, is about 2.5 billion. So we are taking 34 billion versus 2.5 billion. So in terms of importance, I think the value can translate itself. It is right that the Department of Veterinary Services mentioned that there's actually a shortage because right now we are actually at a critical point whereby those who entered service in the 1980s, 1990s are retiring in droves now. And the demographics seems to be pointing to more vets going into small animal practice or companion animal practice rather than the ever critical food animal practice, which is important for food security. And that's why I think Department of Veterinary Services is actually revealing that shortages, saying that we are actually in critical need of vets. Like what I mentioned just now, those are the areas that the vets can actually participate. But since all areas are not growing at an even pace, as a matter of fact, I can even quote that for every single food veterinarian that we have in the field, there are at least 7.5 practicing small animal veterinarian. Whereas if you look at the value industry, 2.5 billion versus for pet animal industry versus food sector, and food sector is the one that provides us with meat, milk, and eggs. So I guess it's even more critical now if we consider it.
Dr. Go, what's causing this imbalance? Why are more vets choosing to enter small animal practice or companion animal practice as opposed to food animal practice?
I think the trend is actually not only happening here in Malaysia, it happens everywhere, to the point that USDA, US Department of Agriculture, even have to offer loan waivers to practicing veterinarians in the US to go into food animal. There are multiple factors. One of the factors will be, well, it's always more exciting to work with to work in an urban setting whereby you have clinics, where you can still keep your good balance of quality of life. That means you are still engaged with the community around you, rather than staring at farm animals in some wilderness area. It's not something that is used to be. I mean, something that is acceptable to everybody. And second thing is that I think gender also played a big role. If you look at the statistics now, there are about 43% of males versus 57% of females in the vet industry. If you look at historical data, that is what we get: 43% male, 57% females. But if you look at current trends, we actually, in terms of enrollment, women outnumbered men 3 to 1. That means 75% females. Now, this represents some kind of challenges. We know that in order to be active in the food animal industry, you cannot farm in urban areas because there are land codes prohibiting setting up of farms and all kinds of things. So as a result, most farms will be established in suburban areas or in fringe. And because of that as well, farms are manned by mostly guys in the guise of foreign workers and so on and so forth. So any other person who wants to go into those kind of facilities will have to be of the same sex. So that will be some kind of, not to say deterrent, discouragement of for the ladies to go into food animals. No doubt there are still ladies who are actually in the food animal sector, but the number is not that many. In fact, at the university itself, when we are actually sending out students to do practical training, by the way, our students typically need to complete anything between 24 to 32 weeks of practical training throughout the 5 years training. We also need to consider all these aspects because they will be housed in proximity, not to say within the same farm as those foreign workers who are typically males. So that is also something that deters a lot of veterinarians from going into food animal practice.
Right. Just very quickly, can I look at Malaysia's veterinary education system? When we look at the system as a whole, do we have the capacity to meet both current and future demand? Do we have enough, are we producing enough veterinary graduates to begin with?
Okay, there are 2 schools producing veterinarians in the country, one in UPM, one in UMK. Our combined capacity per annum is actually about 150 to 160. We are actually rapidly increasing that to maybe about, at most, maybe about 200 a year. But we also have to consider that there are only about 110 veterinary academics in the country with PhDs. And again, the factor of age also comes in, factor of age, factor of retirement. To be very frank, my faculty, the current veterinary faculty now, we have about 71 staffs, and about 1/3 of them will be retiring, including myself, in the next 10 years. So we can actually increase the class sizes, but we have to think about how to sustain those class sizes when we do not have enough academic. And by the way, we also follow the medical teaching staff to student ratio. We do not exceed, we limit the students at 8 students per teaching staff. So because of all those factors, it really restricts the number of students that can train. Not to mention, the veterinary program is actually a very expensive program, much more expensive than all other programs. On average, it costs the government about 97,000 ringgit per student per year to train a student. Why? Because you need to build hospitals, you need to build, you need to bring them to the farms and so on and so forth. So it's much more expensive as compared to other professions. So all those are factors that contribute to the limited capacity that we have.
Well, Dr. Goh, you're raising all these points that I think as a layperson and the public, I think, may not have realized. Talk to me a little bit about what how you see the path going forward. I mean, what kinds of policies or academic reforms would you recommend for us to be able to attract and train and retain a whole new generation of not just veterinarians, practicing veterinarians in maybe food animal practice, but also veterinary academics who are qualified to bring up a new generation of this workforce?
Yeah, I guess if you look at the materials that I mentioned just now, I've supplied to, I've presented earlier, we are experiencing an annual attrition about maybe about 5% in terms of the tertiary teachers in universities. So that is actually something that is of a concern to retain them, because it pays, their wages are actually much more better outside. This is actually the same trend that we are seeing in medical sector as well. And secondly, our new graduates, well, maybe it's a good thing as well. Well, our graduates are typically have typically secured their jobs maybe up to two semesters before they graduate. So attracting them back to the university will be a challenge. So I guess we need to have multiple strategies: a short-term plan, medium-term, and long-term. Short-term, I guess, in order to boost the amount of personnel that we need to be running the food security, the farms and so on and so forth, we need to make use of the pool of veterinary para-professionals. Because since there are reluctance of certain members, certain of the veterinary community to be at the farms, we need to use these veterinary para-professionals comprising of nutritionists, comprising of animal breeders, animal scientists, animal para-professionals to be there to make up the numbers. Because after all, only things that involve practicing rights involving drugs requires vets. The second thing is that there should be maybe a review on how we actually deploy our vets. There should be some kind of incentives like what the US Department of Agriculture is doing, maybe waiver of student loans to facilitate more to get into food animal practice. And I think recently what the Sarawakian government is actually attempting to do by establishing a new vet school in UPM campus Sarawak, which has just been proclaimed by our Tongku Chancellor on the 1st of July, is actually a move in the right direction, because that is actually bringing vets closer to the areas where food is going to be produced.
Right.
So I think all those are integrated strategies that we need to look at in the medium and in longer term. But we can never escape from the fact that we need to do continuous capacity building by training more academics. We are actually welcoming new vet schools, either from the public sector or from the private sector. In fact, we really need private investments in order to grow the profession. I think for so long, the vet profession has been underinvested because, well, number one thing is that not many people are aware what vets are actually doing. I guess the time to change is actually now.
Dr. Goh, thank you so much for such an enlightening explanation. I hadn't realized some of the challenges that veterinarians face, veterinary academics as well, and also the importance of it for our public health and food systems. Thank you so much for your insights. We're going to take a quick break and we'll be back with more on this topic, so stay tuned. We'll be right back. Welcome back to Consider This. I'm Melisa Idris. Let's continue our discussion about the shortage of vets in the country. With only around 2,500 active veterinarians nationwide and growing demand across all sectors, experts are warning that the current capacity is unsustainable. Joining me now is Datuk Dr. Quaza Nizamuddin Hassan Nizam, Adjunct Professor at the Faculty of Health and Medical Sciences at Taylor's University. Datuk Quaza was also the Director General of the Department of Veterinary Services from 2017 to 2020. And he's also the former president of the Federation of Asian Veterinary Associations. Datuk Quaza, thank you so much for being on the show with me today. Could we begin our conversation maybe by having you lay out for us the role, the vital role that vets play? I'm just wondering whether the public, and myself included, truly understands the role that vets play beyond ensuring, just the well-being of our companion animals, but also the role they play in ensuring food safety and zoonotic disease prevention.
Yeah, thanks, Melissa, for having me in this program. I think the vets play a very important role, and they contribute in animal health and towards human well-being as well as environmental sustainability. And if you take an example of a disease which is like highly pathogenic avian influenza, which is a zoonotic disease, it not only threatens birds, mammals, and humans too. and can cause death, financial losses, as well as disrupt food supply and cause price increases. That's one element of how disease from poultry can move to the humans. Rabies is another disease is of public health concern and affecting animals and humans, which is still prevalent in Sarawak. Another pressing challenge is the antimicrobial resistance. The misuse of antimicrobials in both human and animal health sectors can lead to drug-resistant infections, making treatment less effective. So rigorous monitoring is required across food chains from farm, slaughterhouses to processing centers, and it's crucial to maintain safe, residue-free food products. And not forgetting, Malaysia is a growing population with more affluence and so on. The demand for animal protein is on the rise, particularly from the beef and dairy sector. And so veterinarians, both in the public and private sector, play a crucial role in improving breeding, feeding, and husbandry practices to boost productivity and increase production. Right. And one important area which is in the forefront now is animal welfare, which remains an highly emotive issue among people. And veterinarians are expected to be torchbearers of responsible animal care. So all this underscores the importance of delivering high-quality veterinary services with far-reaching impact across different sectors.
Right. Can I ask you, Datuk, given the vital role that vets play in terms of public health and food safety, are our veterinarians sufficiently recognized and empowered to act as public health frontliners, essentially?
Yeah, that's an important issue which we need to address in terms of, one is in terms of the number of veterinarians in the services, whether it's in the public or the private sector. There's a big disparity in terms of the demand and supply. That actually affects the veterinary services. However, the awareness among people are still lacking in terms of the importance of vets and how they contribute positively towards animals, to humans, to the environment itself. So even the public sector, for example, the level of recognition of veterinarians is not as on par with other professionals in the public sector. Yeah. So this is one of the issues which needs to be resolved if you want to attract more talent, more veterinarians to the public sector, because there is this huge vacancy in the government sector which is not filled because it's not attractive to join the public sector because the positioning of the rate of employment is much lower than other professionals like the doctors, engineers, and so on. The government has to really look into how we can further improve and attract talents to serve the public sector, because public sector plays a crucial role in various aspects of animal health, food production, and so on.
So we heard from Dr. Goh earlier that there is a real imbalance in terms of the veterinary workforce being in small animal practice or companion animal practice versus food animal practice. And of course, livestock heavy states will need more vets than pet clinics in KL. Can I ask you what needs to be done for the system to be built to encourage this correction in imbalance?
So what is of importance is if you look at the livestock sector, which you have mentioned just now, you have the industry which is very commercial, like the poultry and the swine industry, which is very commercial, and there are a lot of private practitioners, veterinarians servicing these industries. And there, of course, there is also a shortage of veterinarians coming into industry, but the bigger deficit in terms of gaps in terms of veterinarians are in the sector of the dairy industry, the ruminant industry, which is still under the purview of the Department of Veterinary Services, because the commercialization of the sector is still in its infancy. Beef sector is still, the self-sufficiency rate is low. Dairy industry now is flourishing, but the talent required is not there. People are not joining the public sector because the pull factor from the private sector, which offers better remuneration, is the biggest concern for us, for the veterinarians to join the public sector. Okay. In fact, I had an opportunity once to speak to about 120 final year veterinarians about how the government serves, or rather the kind of job the public sector veterinarian needs to handle. And after my briefing or presentation, I asked among 120 final year graduates, how many of you are interested to join the public sector? There's only one person who raised his hand. And this is a real problem we're facing. So the government seriously need to look at how we can better position public sector veterinarians in terms of perks and in terms of salary and so on. Right. If not, we are not going to attract veterinarians into the public sector. And when the public sector is positions are not filled, then the veterinary services is affected. At the district level, where the farmers require the services of veterinarians, where the industry requires the services of veterinarians for accreditation purposes, for farm accreditation, for processing center to be accredited. All this will delay and slow down the services provided by the government veterinarian. So I think it's important and timely that the government look at this problem and address this properly.
Well, given your experience, Datuk, what would you recommend the government do? What strategies, what policies or policy changes do you think are needed to not just boost the number of veterinarians or veterinary graduates who are staying in the public sector, but also increasing the number of academics to build that capacity? We've heard from Dr. Goh that there are so few academics and that they're not able to increase capacity building in this sector. What would you like to see in terms of strategies?
Yeah, this is the demand and supply issue about producing enough sufficient veterinarians. We can say there's not enough academicians, but if there's no universities which have been approved for the purpose of producing veterinarians, then will create a demand for academicians. Then we have to prepare undergraduates to go through this education process to become lecturers and so on. So at the moment, I think there's at least about 2 or 3 universities, private universities, who have applied to introduce Doctor of Veterinary Medicine program. And the Malaysian Veterinary Council and the government should look at this positively and approve these applications so that they can then take the responsibility to produce vet, and with no cost to the government, instead of the government itself trying to introduce new faculties, and because it's a costly program, and let the private sector, let it be private sector driven, but the whole process has to be facilitated by the government, Ministry of Higher Education, the Malaysian Veterinary Council, the Department of Veterinary Services, so that private universities can facilitate these private universities to undertake this responsibility to introduce the Doctor of Veterinary Medicine program, so that we can produce more veterinarians.
Dato, is there an issue of standardization or regulation if that were to be the case? If there were a private sector?
Of course, there are standards which the universities have to adhere to, and those standards are available and recognized, also used in other countries and so on. So the important part is how can we facilitate? Can we introduce education in such a way that the private sector can do it effectively, It did not follow the format of a government university, because private institutes are profit driven. They need to derive profit, right? So the way they offer this program should not mirror exactly as the government universities, because government funding is there available for the faculties to use, and it's expensive program. But the universities has to optimize, the parents have to optimize, and this is where we need to look at how are they providing the functional part of the education, and whether that fulfills the standard. If that can be done, then go ahead and work with the private institutes to ensure the standards are in place and offer the programs. So that's what should happen moving forward, and that will help solve a lot of our problems in getting enough veterinarians.
Right. That was Datuk Dr. Quaza Nizamuddin Hassan Nizam, the Adjunct Professor at the Faculty of Health and Medical Sciences at Taylor's University, wrapping up this episode of Consider This. I'm Melisa Idris, signing off for the evening. Thank you so much for watching. Good night.